Hey everybody, I'm Bob Bakert from Jazz Guitar today. We're here today with Bruce Forman. Hey Bruce.
Hey, Bob.
Hey, before we go any further, I want to remind people to please subscribe. Please share, like, follow, do all the stuff. It really, really makes a difference. It helps us grow the channel. And just whatever you can do, like ring bells, all that stuff that everybody asks you to do, please do that for us as well. Also, well, I guess that's it. I won't go any further with that. So now we're back to Bruce. Today, you and I were having a conversation the other day, about a week ago, I guess it was. And you started telling me, I said, well, hey, Bruce, we're just having a casual conversation. I said, hey man, what are you doing? What's going on? And you like rattle up this litany of stuff that you're doing. And I said, well, as many fans as you have, and you got a ton of them. I said, why don't we just get together and tell everybody what you're doing because you're doing so much stuff. So this is kind of your stage, if you will, to just kind of bring us up to speed with what's going on.
Oh, cool. Well, you're a guy that's been actually going through a lot of stuff too. You've had quite a handful, So
Is that what you call
I don't know. I don't feel like I'm alone here.
it?
But Bob, it's weird. I've always been a project guy. I just can't. For people who want to play, I don't care what stage of their life or what ability they have. My biggest suggestion, and one of the things that has always been the driver for me in terms of getting better and having fun and being engaged with life, is to have a project. Whether
Right.
it's get together with your friends to make a record or to get a gig or find a new person to play with or find a new instrument to play on or a new style, just whenever there's a project involved, I find that it's so motivating and exciting and encourages so much more positive work and perspective and brings good energy to what you're doing. So obviously, I'm a guy with a lot of projects going, and right now, I think luckily during the pandemic, I stayed engaged online and I kept practicing and playing a lot. And so when this is opening up, I'm kind of reaping some rewards, I feel, from that. And I actually even have a new kind of project, which I'm not ready to talk about because I made, I haven't really, embarked on it yet. It's just in the planning stages and it involves other people. So you got to make sure they're on board before it happens.
Yeah, that's probably a good idea.
That's why I like solo projects. Me and a guitar, the guitar never, it does give me trouble, but it never complains.
I mean, I'm a singer as well as a guitar player, and I can do the gig by myself if I want to. I
Right.
prefer to play with other people, but it does have its advantages to be able to just say, hey, I can do that thing. Well, you and I share that. I've always said, and I'll probably put this on my stone, even though I probably won't have a stone, but um, I always enjoyed climbing the mountains rather than standing on top of them.
Yeah.
And you always, and that came from when I used to ride a lot of mountain bikes. We used to we'd ride for 3 hours to get to the top of the mountain, and we're having a blast doing it. Working hard, and dodging everything, and you get to the top, and you're there for like 3 or 4 minutes, and like, all right, this is boring. Hey, there's one over there. Let's go to that
Yeah.
mountaintop over there. So you know, climbing and having something to challenge you, I think is just a good thing. So yeah, you're the king of that. I mean, you got that going on. So, but we
Yeah.
sh- we share that passion.
Yeah. That's, and I mean, and I really want to just impress that, the jazz guitarists who are whether they're at the professional stage or whether they're in just the learning stage. I think it's a universal truth for all of us to
Right.
just get hot, get into something, and if, yeah, I mean, halfway down the road, you may find a better road, or you may decide you don't want to do that anymore. You'll do something else. It's okay. It's all the energy and the learning and the work that was done to get to wherever you were is going to be very beneficial in myriad ways.
I liken it to hiking a trail
Yeah.
you've never been on before. You get up there, you kind of got a map of what you sort of think, but all of a sudden you go, hey man, wow, look at that. Why don't let's divert, that looks, and then you find this new waterfall you never saw before, whatever it is. So I,
Right.
I get that. So so let's just talk about some of the specifics of what you're doing like right now. So you got a bunch of red guitar gigs coming up.
Right. Okay. The red guitar.
Red guitar. Well,
Um,
let's talk about what differentiates a red guitar gig for people that don't know.
okay.
What differentiates a red guitar gig from any of your other gigs?
Okay. The red guitar, which I got this guitar, it's made by Stefan Sontag, and it's a really unique guitar. His guitars are just, they play great, but also this particular one's extremely acoustic and just full of life. And it's a live wire. And I've always been attracted to the I or attracted to the stories of the red shoes and the red violin, which goes into sort of my just pathology of wondering, do musical instruments really possess somebody's soul? I mean, when you've got a guitar and it becomes part of you, it does. It holds part of you in there. And of course, those stories, the red shoes and the red guitar, are about that, and from various points of view. And so I decided to create a show called The Red Guitar using the basic narrative arc of the red violin and the red shoes, where the uh, where the inanimate object takes over the life of the person who owns it. And I decided to explore what it's like to be a musician, to be one of us who like was consumed by it at a fairly young age and gave our whole life to it in
Right.
terms professionally, and psychically and emotionally and spiritually and every way basically. And so um it's kind of like the guitar, do you play it or does it play you kind of point of view. And what I did is I wrote a libretto that starts with, it's basically like a one man show you'd see on off Broadway or on Broadway, and that I play and I tell a story about how the music took over my life and the manifestations of that, starting with the meeting the red guitar, which is a metaphor for music,
Mm-hmm.
going through the influences, the people that I heard that inspired me to want to do this, and then going into how we tell stories through music, how we develop community through music, how we deal with the craziness of the business, how we how we deal with loss through the music, and ultimately to sort of a death scene where it's like basically I know that I will go and the red guitar will play on and somebody else will play it. And I never stop playing. Like the red shoes, they start dancing and they actually kill their host because she can't stop dancing.
Right.
That's the bugaboo in the red shoes. So I metaphorically, I'm always playing. So I'm doing all of my monologues while I'm playing. It's a simultaneous experience, and it's very challenging, and it's funny, and it's emotional, and it's educational, and hopefully inspiring. And I did it a lot up till the pandemic. It was kind of my main thing before the pandemic, and then I got involved with another red guitar, which the real red guitar is Barney Kessel's guitar. In many ways, I foretold the future by writing that story. And so that project I've got with John Clayton and Jeff Hamilton around Barney's guitar is still going strong. And of course, my regular trio is going strong, and I play a lot of solo concerts. But yeah, the red guitar is something I'm bringing back and doing a lot more of these days. I'm very excited because I want, and I know this is a lofty ambition, but I want to explain to the world what we're like.
Right.
I think that everybody will appreciate the music and musicians more if they understood why we do what we do, how, what we're made of, what makes us tick. And so it is sort of an attempt to explain to the world, when you meet these crazy people who are just, living life in the pursuit of sound,
Right.
what we're like, and maybe they'll appreciate the music from a new point of view by hearing the story. That, and of course, it's a love letter to jazz music because I just love it so much. So that's really what it is. I just did it at the Healdsburg Jazz Festival. I've got a few concerts on my way up to Port Townsend Jazz Festival, and then so it's a big project, something very near. It's the most challenging thing I've ever tried to do because literally I am like doing a monologue while I'm soloing over. You've seen it. While I'm
Yeah.
soloing over giant steps, I'm doing a monologue. So it's it's very challenging. Of course, there's besides playing, there's acting and storytelling and comedy, and it's just an improvisation because the story, although it has an arc, I really haven't. It's not a memorized script. It's a working outline, basically.
Right. Yeah. As it should be, I mean, that's a good, that's a good thing. That's, there are some movies and plays, they want you word perfect if you do a play.
Yeah.
But in movies, some people want you word perfect and some people want you to bring something, I mean, when they hired Robin Williams, they didn't hire him to be word perfect.
Well,
They
if they did,
expect
they sure made a mistake because
Yeah,
he was
they
not going
expected
to.
him to bring it, so
Yeah.
you get the idea. But so did you send some of your blood to Sontag when he was doing the finish?
No, no, I didn't. And I mean, and I love this guitar. It's a great guitar. The guy's an amazing builder and a good friend, and another guy who's just he's kind of like Peter Henriksen. He really gives to the community. I mean,
Yeah.
puts on this amazing workshop in the Tyrolean Alps every year. That's just more fun than you can imagine. And he's just a real community spirit guy, as you know. And I mean, he'd be the first guy if your guitar needed something at one of those festivals. He'd be the guy who would happily fix it for you, And
Fix it up for you.
yeah, he's just like Peter Henriksen, very giving, very much into the community, really loves it.
Well, I'm a big fan of Peter's, that's for sure.
Yeah,
Hey, I've got a couple of questions for you. So, let's try to finish up what you're doing. So, you got a lot of gigs coming up.
yeah,
Make sure you send me your calendar so I can include this when we put this up on the magazine.
sure. It's all up on my website, but I'll
Just
give you the bullet points. You know what
Yeah,
I mean?
just send me something. So I've got a question for you. So you're playing from shit 3 decades ago or 4 decades ago was
Yeah,
already pretty baked. I mean, you like a lot of guys in their 20s and 30s, there's 20s in particular, they're just out to smoke. I mean, they're just
yeah,
smoking everything they're doing.
yeah.
And at some point, as a player matures, they're trying to communicate more and trying to try to make the music. They get more in touch with the music because at some point in time you realize, well, there's 12 notes. There's a little over three and a half octaves. There's about 126 different positions on a fretboard to choose from. And
Mhm.
at some point in time, the intellectual mind kind of realizes that, hey, I can put these things together in all kinds of different ways, finger paints and all that kind of stuff. But what am I really trying to connect to?
Mhm.
What connects me to what I want to be connected to, which is usually the audience. Um, and watching, I've watched and I've listened to you live several times, and I've watched your YouTube videos and all that. And I know you teach. I mean, your teaching is a big part of your life. I mean, you taught at 2 or 3 different universities, if not more. You still have master classes, and you're just all over the guitar and music. How do you approach music today when you're playing?
That's where you're going with all this. Y-
I had a reason.
yeah, for me, it's just playing. It's just playing. Uh, I think the big lesson from the pandemic for me was all of a sudden it all stopped. I'd been chasing gigs my whole life. I think a lot of my choices or my stylistic aspects were very much directed by my work situations. You know, playing trio without a key piano player mostly for the last 30 years has made me a very pianistic player, and my love for accompanying has made me a very pianistic player. And so naturally, a lot of when you're talking about my 20s when I was with Richie Cole and Bobby, I was kind of just like a horn player. I mean, we didn't need a piano player; we had one, and
Right.
and so my thing was to and being the bird was my main influence. I just kind of became a second saxophone player or a trumpet player in the band on the guitar, and then as my roles in bands changed, I started bringing in more and different aspects, and then just playing the music. If I'm playing solo, I'm playing solo. If I'm playing duo with somebody, well, I'm playing this way. If I'm playing in a quartet and there's no piano, I'm playing this way. But if I'm playing a quartet and there is a piano, then I'm playing. I would just play music, and and I never really stopped, other than when it was my gig, to think about what I wanted to do.
Right.
I was just kind of, and I hate when people say this, but I'm going to say it, serving the music. It sounds so lofty and fucking bullshit. But anyways, you know,
I
that's
gotta look
what
at that's a technical term, isn't it? I gotta look that up somewhere.
serving the music is. Everybody loves to say that as
No,
if
no,
they're
I'm joking. I'm
and,
joking.
and I mean, like, everybody's got an ego. Nobody plays good who doesn't have an ego.
No, I
So,
understand.
but still, there is that element of like, what's going to make this all better,
Right.
and then from there, where can I put my personal contribution into it?
That's
And
it.
so that was my life, and except for on my own gigs, and then which was not the majority of my work. It was a
Right.
good percentage of my work. And then the red guitar came along, and that became, that was all me. And I found myself loving playing solo guitar, which is something I always did when everybody needed it. A million times, a band leader would say, Bruce, why don't you go out and play a couple of tunes before the band starts, or or whatever. I get called for a solo gig, and I love to play solo, but I didn't love to play solo. And then the red guitar came along, and I really started to. And then the pandemic happened, and here I was. And if the pandemic started, I said, this is great. I'm going to spend an hour working on reading every day, and an hour transcribing, and an hour doing this, and an hour doing that. Well, of course, that lasted 2 days. And then I just basically said, I may never have another gig. I may never, you know, if and I'm not young, as you can probably tell. I don't have my young filter on the TV right now on the computer. So it's like, Bruce, if you don't start playing what you want to play every time you pick up your guitar,
Right.
you're never going to get to it. And the truth was, Bob, I didn't even know what that was.
Well, here's the thing, and I'm saying, I'm being really serious about this. Nobody's having more fun playing the guitar than you.
Well, that's a good thing to know,
I know.
but
I've never seen you play, as an adult, if you will, where you just aren't having a ball.
yeah.
You're totally, and when your answer to my question, which was long, and I get it, I'm sorry about that, but was I just play, I just play, was
Yeah.
perfect, because that's what it looks like.
Yeah, well, that's what it is. But it
Yeah,
took, I mean, to get to that is my point. I guess I'm giving you the long answer to the long question. But the,
that's a good answer.
like when I realized, you know, I didn't even know what that was, Bob.
Yeah,
And so what I said was, okay, I'm going out to my studio here, my shed, and I'm just going to play, and I'm just going to observe. And
right.
whatever it is I'm playing, that must be what I want to play, because otherwise I wouldn't play it. And it was really interesting to me to observe almost objectively what this human here did, and then I started to realize, yes, that's where I want to go, and then work on things that really I loved.
Right.
For no other reason. I didn't know if I'd ever have another gig. I didn't know what was going to happen, but, and so that time really helped me out. I mean, in terms of defining what I want to say, when I
Right.
want to say. But the big thing is, yes, I want to have fun playing music. That's the overriding thing. But let's face it, that doesn't mean I'm not taking the music seriously.
Oh, no, no.
I
No.
mean, I'm taking the music very seriously. I'm just not taking myself seriously.
Well, I
And
just think that you've allowed yourself to have fun I mean, you've got all the colors in your palette that you could ever want. You got all that stuff, and you're just deciding which ones you're going to throw on the canvas,
right,
move them around a little bit, and and just have fun with it all the time. And I was watching, you playing with Peter Bernstein. It was about a year ago, the video, and you're playing on Green Dolphin Street,
uh-huh.
and the mat you're playing on that is masterful. I mean, you're using so many different techniques, and your chordal movements and awareness and whatever. I can't think of the platitudes I'm trying to come up with, but all the shit you're doing on a harmony is like amazing. Your single note lines are amazing. You're coming up with melodies. You're doing all this, and you got this great big grin on your face the whole time that you're doing it. I mean, that's a class. People out there, go over to YouTube and watch watch Bruce and Peter Bernstein play on Green Dolphin Street. And there's so many things to grab from that. And I think obviously the music's incredible, your playing's incredible, Peter's playing's incredible, but
Yeah.
the fact that you're just having a ball and not taking yourself
Well, you know,
it's not that you're not taking yourself seriously, it's more that you just you're just having fun. This is just fun. It's just fun.
right, right. I mean, God, imagine if you played with Peter Bernstein, of course, one of my favorite musicians on the planet, and you didn't have fun. How would you feel afterwards?
Where do you go from there?
I mean, you'd say to yourself, like, boy, I sure missed an opportunity there, didn't I?
Yeah.
It's
Like
like,
Joe
I was in an ice cream store and I ordered, I ordered the beans, you know what I mean?
Oh, yeah, it's like I can't say what I was going to say because it's
Yeah, yeah. I tried to come up with one that was
yeah,
sort of
right, yeah, it's
wasn't the best, but
there's a
it
lot of low hanging fruit right there,
yeah,
and you better no, let's let I think our audience
yeah.
can jump onto that for sure. Well, that's very, very cool. So are you still getting along with the Barney guitar?
I love that guitar. Yes, yes. And again, and the project with John Clayton and Jeff Hamilton, the reunion trio, it's called, is still going strong. We're actually playing at the Port Townsend Jazz Festival, uh, I guess next weekend. Yeah,
So you
next.
want to tell people what that is, the instruments that you're
Okay, Port
playing?
Townsend is a town up in the Puget Sound area, across the sound from Seattle. It's the
Right,
Olympic Peninsula. That thumb that Washington
right.
has, sticks out in the Pacific. It's at the tip of that, and it's an old fort that's been decommissioned. Is now a arts center. It was where they filmed Officer and a Gentleman. If
Yeah,
you ever,
I've actually been there twice for conferences.
oh, okay, cool. So that's that place, and they have a jazz festival which starts off as a week of workshops, and then it culminates on Friday and Saturday into a big festival.
Yeah,
There's a huge dirigible hangar there. That's like a couple thousand seats, and that's where the festival happens. But there's also, when those concerts aren't going on, there's like the rec hall and the officers club and a little theater, and they have clubs going on, and musicians are playing. So all the teachers, all the people who are there teaching, and it's a very exalted group of musicians, are playing together. And John Clayton is the artistic director of it,
yeah.
has been for about 15 years. And he puts together all the schedules and who plays with who. And our trio, me and John and Jeff, will be playing in the main thing on Saturday night. But I'll be playing in the clubs with some other people. Yeah, I mean, unbelievable musicians are there, and it's just always a great hang.
It's open to the public though. It's not a private.
Yes, the festival itself is open to the public. The workshop stuff you have to pay to go to.
Way to go. Yeah, all right.
But and I'm sure there'll be probably a dozen guitar players there that I'll give workshops to during the week.
Yeah.
And they'll play in bands that will play around during the week in the various areas. It's a great hang.
Having been there twice for, like I said, for conferences, that's it. It is a great area. It's really, really cool. Just getting there, taking the ferry over and all that kind of stuff is really, really cool. And I got to be good friends with one of the indigenous raccoons that was there. He used to so it is a cool place. And obviously the music, I mean, you can't pick a better place, to go and just hang out and vibe down. So
I live down as you know, in California, in Central California. So
yeah.
I decided to drive up and then book a bunch of gigs along the way, both ways. And so I'm doing a number of Red guitar shows. I'm doing a duo in Portland with a guitar player named Adley Alexander. And I'm playing with a trio in San Francisco at a club called Keys. So, cool. I mean, on my way up and back, I have a number of one-nighters going.
So you're playing Barney's guitar.
Yeah.
Ray Brown's bass is on the gig.
Yeah, I don't know if John's bringing it, but he has it, and that's the one that's on the record. And Gary Hobbs, who's the drummer, who I'm actually playing a gig in Vashon Island with him the day after the festival, and he's the one who had Shelley's drums and loaned them to us. So those may even be there for that gig. I don't know, and so. But they're on the record. The reunion.
You're playing the music from that record. Is that the?
Oh, yeah, some of it for sure.
Some of it, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's very, very cool. Well, what else you got?
What else have I got? I mean, just trying to play the guitar and have a good time. It's weird, Bob, because I guess I was about 18 or 17, and I went and I hung with Joe Pass. Guess we called it a lesson. I don't remember. I went over to his house and we played, and we're playing and playing some tunes together. And he just started laughing, and he says, I was just like you when I was your age. What? And I said, what? And I said, he says, like, just playing lines and comping. That's all I did. I was just playing in bands. That's what I did. I wasn't always a solo guy, and I said, what? I just assumed like he was Art Tatum since day one,
Right, yeah.
And he said, no, I says, I was like, just playing lines and comping and just having a good time, being basically a horn player and playing chords when I had to, and, da-da-da-da. And he says, and all that solo stuff, what happened was, it started off kind of with George Shearing. George would make me play a tune by myself on every set. Everybody in the band would kind of do that. And he says, and then, I started working with the Pablo thing with Norman Granz. And he says, and we'd all be waiting to play. It'd be Oscar would be there, and Ella Fitzgerald, and and Sweets Edison and Clark Terry, all those guys who were on the label, those jazz harmonic kind of things. And he says, and Norman would just say, hey, Joe, go ahead and play 20 minutes, start the show off. And so I did it, and he said he kind of liked it, and so next thing you know, I'm making a record, and I'm going out on the road doing this, and it's just like I became kind of this solo guy. He says, very. If you knew Joe, you knew how kind of like unaffected he was by everything. He was very apathetic. Would be a very good word for him. I mean, obviously his playing was fire, but just. Yeah, he felt about it, or the way he communicated, he felt about it was just sort of whatever. And he looked at me during that day. I remember it so well. He was sitting on one couch, and I was sitting across the coffee table on another couch. And he looked at me and he said, "It's going to happen to you." And I just said, Joe, no way, man. You're full of shit. I even said, you're full of shit. I'm a band player. It's what I want to do. It's what I'm going to do. And he just laughed. And he says, it's going to happen to you just like that, And now I look at my life right now,
Yeah.
solo playing and playing duo with singers and all that stuff. And I love to do it. Don't get me wrong. I mean, I am not doing this because I have to or it's good for business. I love to do it. But the fact that he called it, and then the red guitar on top of it, it just makes me laugh and love him more. And actually, in San Francisco at the end of August, I'm doing a tribute to Joe and Ella with a fabulous singer named Mary Stallings. She's world famous singer, and she's from San Francisco. So I grew up playing with her from time to time. And it was 50 years ago that Joe and Ella recorded their first record. So we're going to do a couple of nights in a jazz club, just duo. But it's just so funny to me to remember that conversation and remember my reaction to it, and you just don't know what's going to happen, man.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome. I mean, to be, I mean, I don't even know how to put that into words. That's awesome. And this isn't like, Joey Bag of Donuts talking. This is Joe Pass talking.
Right. Yeah.
This is, that's, I've talked to a lot of people that took lessons with Joe. That is the most poignant of all the stories I've ever heard. I mean,
Yeah, he was very apathetic. I mean,
yeah,
he didn't really have much to say. We would argue. I mean, I spent a lot of time after that. He would come up to San Francisco and play at the Venetian Room in the Fairmont Hotel for like a week at a time, either with Oscar or solo or with Ella, and my friend ran the sound, so I was there every night pretty much.
yeah.
And then I would hang out with Joe during the day. He liked to go out and eat food. He loved Italian food, but I would also take him. He liked Chinese. The Chinese stuff I brought him to eat, he liked. So I'd go. The point was we would play and then we'd go eat lunch, but usually I just played. He would sit there in bed. I'd get there like at 11:30 or something, knock on the door, and he'd answer the door smoking a cigar in his bathrobe, and he'd go, "Hey Bruce," he'd let me in the room. He'd walk back to the bed and get in the bed and tell me to play for him. Play for me. And that was my hanging with Joe musically. I could every now and then I managed to get him to play his guitar, but a lot of times he just left his guitar down either on the bandstand or in the dressing room, so it wasn't even in his room. So I mean, it was just basically me playing for Joe. And he was
Wow.
always like, "Gotta play more bass notes, gotta play more bass notes." And I'm like, "Joe, I don't want to hear that." It's like, "I'm sorry, man. Don't you listen to Art Tatum? Don't you listen to, I've started mentioning all these solo piano players that I loved. They're not playing, but you can hear what key we're in. Why do you need the bass notes? I'm wasting a finger with that." And, we would kind of argue about it a little bit. And then eventually we'd go out and have lunch until one day, knocked on the door, same thing happened. He answers the door. He's in his bathrobe. He's got his guitar. I mean, he's got a cigar. He
Yeah.
answered the door, and I like ran by him, put the guitar down, kicked off my shoes, and jumped in his bed and said, "Play for me." And he went like, he's standing there holding the cigar, kind of looking like shocked, and I guess it dawned on him like what we had been doing every day for the whole week.
He probably thought, "What's this kid? What's going on
Yeah,
here?"
I mean, it dawned on him like how ridiculous what had been happening was too,
Yeah. No, I
and
love it.
kind of did that shrug that he always did. He always looked like the guy who was selling shake and bake on those TV commercials, and he kind of gave me a shrug of the shoulders. He says, let's go eat."
You kind of expect him to take you out and show you that new 65 Falcon out in the back that he's been holding for you,
Yeah, right. Yeah, but
What's really funny is I know your age. I'm not going to share it unless you want
it's
to.
okay. I don't care. I mean, I made it this far. Shit.
You're 68, right?
Yeah,
All right. Joe was 65 when he died.
I know.
Yeah. I mean, but that's not unusual. I mean, for that era, that's, it
Yeah.
is what it is. But can you think of I'm not trying to put you on the spot, but what the hell? I'm here. Can you think of kids that you've had that effect on that are going to look back and when they tell, I mean, when you tell stories about Joe Pass and Barney Kessel and all that, I mean, you are that guy now. You are that guy for a lot of
I
people.
knew them at least. Yeah.
But I mean,
Yeah,
you are that guy. You're
I'm one
the
of those guys.
well, you don't understand what I'm saying. You are one of those guys.
Yeah. Yeah. And I believe I have tried to, but it really, it was me. Joe and Barney wouldn't have had any effect on me if it wasn't me bringing that to
Right.
the. And there are many of my students who, yes, are that way. And I hope that I've helped them. Matter of fact, when I meet them, the thing I usually say to myself first is don't fuck them up. Leave them alone. Like, no, really, because what they've got is something special. You want to help them, you want to give them what they want, but you don't want to. I don't want to impose my aesthetic on them. I don't
Right.
want to, I don't want to like because I think is something is good or not good. I don't care. That's not important. So yes, I would say numerous students, some who've become famous guys who took lessons from me,
Right.
who are my friends still, and some who probably the world will never know who are fantastic players and great people. So I consider myself very lucky to be able to share my music with people that are interested in it and people who are functioning at a very high level.
Where I'm looking up something. Remind me again all the places that you've been a teacher.
At the university level, I was at San Jose State, and now I'm at USC. Those were the biggest, length runs I ever had. I was at the Stanford for a second, the Stanford Jazz Workshops for a lot of years. Um, I've done master classes at dozens of colleges,
Right.
but the residencies were San Jose State, and then now I've been at USC for like 18 years.
Right.
I took over when Joe DiOrio had his stroke,
Yeah.
so um, I've been doing that. But I've been teaching privately, of course, and doing workshops
Right.
for 40 years now. So
Master classes and all that kind of thing.
yeah, yeah. So, I mean, of course, a lot of great ones came through, and are doing really well, and I love them dearly, and I'm really proud of them. I don't own it any more than Joe or Barney owns what I do. You know what I
Right.
mean? It's just to be an inspiration and maybe help out a little bit and to welcome them into the family. You know.
Well, the the vibe, your vibe is world class. I mean, I'm so proud to know you. I
Oh,
swear to God. No, I really am. I mean, you're your version of Joe. You're unaffected. You know your worth. You know what you are and who you are and where you've been, but you're unaffected by you're just Bruce. You're just
yeah.
Bruce. I've seen you interact with a lot of people, and it's just you're a good human being, sir.
Well,
And
thank you very much. I mean, I really appreciate that. That's one of the that's one of the nicest things anybody could ever say to me, and I'm taking it to heart. I really appreciate that.
so I guess we're done for today. We'll pick this up at another time. It's all
Yes, I do have a couple of things I'd love to share with the world, but again, I just want to wait a little bit longer.
well call me.
Okay.
This is always available to you, man.
Okay,
Always.
great.
Anytime.
All
Yeah.
right, and of course, I want to let everybody know that I do have a fairly new book out. For those of you that aren't aware, I have a series I do called First Course of the Day. I started it back at the beginning of the pandemic. It's where basically I come out here to my shed after I walk the dog, and I just play one chorus of a song, and
Yeah.
that's it. First time me touching the guitar every day, and I put it up. It's honest. It's a whole complete musical statement, and there's over 1,000 now because it's been years, and about 16 of them were transcribed and put in a book, and I make notes like check out what I did in the third A, the
Oh
second A
man,
section,
that
or
that
whatever.
is that is
Yeah.
so important.
and it's got tab for those people that don't read, and it's got video connection. So if you want to read it while you're listening to it and then stop it and see what my hands are doing, even though it's got tab, you can do that too. It's a really great book. But while I was at a workshop in Italy, Stefan's workshop, somebody who is a really good guitar player, he's probably one of the better guys in the bunch, real strong player, professional. And he said to me, he says, I love your book. He says, but it's too hard. And I said to him, I said, his name was Thomas. I said, Thomas, it's like, I didn't think about it being easy or hard. I just played the guitar. I mean, I
Right.
didn't intend for this to be made into a book. I
Right.
just played music because I wanted to play.
Right.
And I didn't really think about it. And then he said, yeah, I know. And he said, because I was showing people stuff, because everybody seems to be really interested in how I do chord melody. And
Right.
so it seems to be the predominant questions I get. So I was showing him some stuff and explaining my philosophy about it and the things that I learned that sort of unlocked the process.
Right.
And he said, like, I'd much rather have a book on what you're showing me now than that. And I said, great, well, I'll write it. So I called the guy who has this company and I said it, and he says, great. And so the book, basically, we're into like the final edit and we're putting it out. It should come out in the next couple months. I believe it's going to be called Fundamentals of Chord Melody or Chord Melody Fundamentals, something like that.
Right.
And this is a word that John Pisano used, that he said Joe Pass used. Now, I hung with Joe. I never heard Joe use this phrase, but John hung with Joe a lot more than I ever did, so I believe John. And he calls them moves. Things you do, like a thing you do with a chord, a move,
Yeah.
And so I used that term and I showed like the 10 moves that I think are the foundation of everything I do.
Right.
And I wanted to share that with the world. And that's what's going to be in this new book.
That's huge. That is huge. And
Yeah.
and and,
So I
and
think,
to
yeah,
stop a video, if you will, and explain this is what I'm doing here.
right.
That's a big deal.
Yeah.
That
So that should be out in about a month. This one is still a good one. And all those moves are in this book.
I've always heard I've always heard that you have moves, Bruce, but I never kind of put it in that
Yeah, but
context.
I kind of bristle at the term being used because it kind of makes it physical and not musical.
Right.
But at the same time, it's a great word.
Right.
It's exactly what it is.
He used to call chords grips too. He used to use
Right,
that
right.
term.
So I have no problem with it as long as people learn and and I just want to share with the world and have everybody play better and be happy, and make great music and have people love it, What
Very
the heck?
cool. Very, very cool. Well, thanks, Bruce.
Sure. Thank you,
Thank,
Bob.
thank you, man.
And I hope to see you soon, man.
I hope I didn't make you too serious. I didn't mean to.
I don't think so. I think we worked this out, and plus, I can always take a pill.
You're the best, man. You are
All
the
right.
best. All right,
All
brother.
right.
Bob
See
Bakert
you.
for Jazz Guitar Today with the maestro himself, Bruce Forman. See you, buddy. Bye bye now.